Now that we've got things set up, let's get back to instructions, and it's time to fire this puppy up. First of all, we're back to the Instructions tab, and you'll see this screen every time that you boot up the application, provided you save it here in Instructions. So we'll start out here in the security warning, click the Options button here, and then check Enable this content. And again, this is explained on the screen. I hit OK, and then click 3 is click here to start AUR Manager. On your computer, you'll be able to see that full screen. Okay, so here we are, we're in the AUR Manager. You notice this doesn't look like a spreadsheet anymore, and it looks like a program. Okay? Now, if you want to follow along, again, you can pause the recording, call up your version of the AUR Manager, get where we are, and then you can walk back and forth and try this for yourself to see how it works. The first screen gives us the option of either creating a new use report or editing one that we've already built. If you select New AUR, up here, you'll be asked to enter the pilot name and aircraft registration for this aircraft use report. There's only one PIC and only one aircraft per aircraft use report. Although you'll be able to record later on other folks who are flying, there's only one responsible PIC per AUR. This may not necessarily be the person flying every leg. So in this case, I'll select Leroy Brown, and you see it knows its FBMS number, and today let's go fly aircraft 708. So you notice we had 3 aircraft in the pull down. It knows it's a Quest Kodiak. We can overwrite this data, so if I don't have the right aircraft here, I can put in the tail number, but the pilot FBMS number always has to be in there. If you select Edit an existing AUR by contrast, you'll get a window here that shows you other AURs that have been created with this manager. For now, let's go back to creating a new AUR and see how easy this is. We click the Create New AUR page, and we get this screen. The page is actually divided into 2 parts. The top third up here lists the legs that we want to work on. And this application can display up to 10 legs. The bottom third of this screen here shows the detail that's associated with the active leg that we're working on. See the black dot here in the select column? That defines the line that we're actively working on. So let's start with general detail. Select the meter type, Hobbs tack pull down. This app can also use clock time, and you see that the display changed. This would be appropriate if you don't have a Hobbs tack in your aircraft. But since most of them do, let's call up Hobbs tack, and we would enter the Hobbs start time for that leg and the stop time. So let's just say 890.4 is our start time, 892.5 okay, is our meter end time. Be careful, there's no error checking here. If you put a figure that is lower, a end time that is lower than the start time, it won't catch it for you. So make sure that these numbers are accurate. The leg start and stop times are needed to arrange the AURs in the FBMS system. It will default to the current date and 6 o'clock in the morning, but it can be overwritten. Now, probably the easiest way to use this is to copy the start date and paste it so you don't have to repeat for the end date if in fact you're flying in the same day and not going past midnight, and then type in your end time. Hopefully this is the toughest part of the application. Now let's go ahead and enter a destination. We could use Boise to Seattle as an example. When we do, you see the descriptions will fill in to confirm that you typed the right identifier. And we've done that with both the departure and arrival airport. If your destination is not in the database and you can't find it anywhere, type in other, and we'll tell you more about that later. Important point here, do not press save this page right now or you're going to get an error. If you hit exit AUR Manager now, no data will be saved and you're completely out of the program. So let's go to the next tab, which is the accounting string. Now here is where you really save some time. If you remember the strings we saved, here they are now in a pull down. For this case, I'm going to select Seabird Surveys, and you can see that the pay item code, the description of the pay item code, fund center, WBS code, SD order line number, state, all that is already done for you. So unless you have additional information in here, you can press on to the next tab. I will save this page though. The line item is saved, and you will notice that the quantity here, 210, reflects that I have 2.1 hours, and the line is now populated up here to show you the basic data for that line. Now we go to the Mission tab. On the Mission tab, you see I've got the default mission code and mission description, but I can also add additional information as I need. I can say I've got 2 passengers. I can change if you're flying for another bureau who the customer is. I can say that we've got cargo on board that I want to record and that they're tanks. If it's a shared flight, just like we had a shared flight column in the paper AMD2, or it's a fire flight, you can check those blocks. And here you can make remarks about the mission. Here's a hint. If you use the other block for a destination, either arrival or departure destination, you can put a little note in here to help yourself out to remember where that destination was and refer back to it later. Okay, this is the fuel page, and this is one of the growth options that we have built into the system and in FBMS for future use. It allows us to specify type of fuel, whether you're using gallons, the quantity of fuel that you uploaded, what kind of card that you put it on, how much it costs, etc. And you can do 2 fuel uploads per legs if you need to. The idea is that for future growth, we'll be able to record this information and improve our business processes that both the bureaus and OES have to use. So when we save this page, you'll get the line item saved little pop-up there, and then you will notice that the leg data is summarized up here in the top third of the screen. You'll also notice that we got additional tabs in the top. So let's take a look at those. Okay, the fleet pilot details allow you to specify the pilots who flew on this particular leg and what events. For each of these tabs, always make sure that the appropriate line is selected. Now in this case, we don't want to have Leroy actually flying the airplane. Let's have Joe Brown flying the airplane, and Leroy instead is going to be the pilot not flying, and we can indicate that his role, CFI, is flight instructor. With this kind of setup then, we can record that Joe, for example, did a precision approach, 1 non-precision approach. He did 2 land takeoffs and 2 land landings. You notice we have blocks here for water, ski, and night landings. He can log IFR time, night time. Let's put him for 0.5 simulated instrument time, and we could also record holding procedures, intercept tracking if we needed to do that. Once we have the data on the page, we save the page, we get the line item saved, and we can move to the next tab. When we get to the next tab here, we'll select the line, make sure that it's good, and you'll notice that we already have 2 aircraft cycles in here. In FBMS, an aircraft cycle is a takeoff and a landing. And in this example, since we had 2 takeoffs and 2 landings, it automatically defaults to 2. And it doesn't matter whether they're water ski or land landings, it will record these cycles, but you can overwrite it. Similarly, it will assume that you did one engine start during this sortie. If you did more than that, you can put a number in, and if you're fortunate enough to have two engines, you can record the number 2, the right engine cycles as well. Then save your page. The Fleet Defects page is a way to enable you to make a note and communicate with the fleet managers. It is not a substitute for making a write-up for an aircraft discrepancy, but is a way to communicate your status, something that you may want to get worked on the next inspection. We can pick status from flyable, not flyable, flyable with discrepancy. We can list a discrepancy, say VHF Fox Mike is in op. Call that a fly with discrepancy, and this defect number will always stay at 1. Then we save the page. So that's one line, okay? We can always go back to the flight data and create another line. So let's do that. When we go to flight data, general, and create another line, you notice that the meter start is now picked up from the meter stop on the previous line. So let's say now we want 8:95 is the time. We're still local, but you'll notice the leg start time did not default. Okay? Again, we need these times for the maintenance manager, and what we suggest you do on your subsequent legs, if you haven't already done it, is use your actual takeoff time and in the chocks time to fill these blocks up so you don't get confused. So I'll cut and paste here because it's the same day, make it just a little bit easier on myself. There we go, and well, let's make this 16:30 on the time. You notice I have to use the 12:00 or 16:30 time because that's required. On the departure airport, it knows we landed at SeaTac, so it's put that as the departure airport, and let's say we want to come back and go to Sun Valley because that's where we want to spend the night. There we are. On the accounting string, if this next leg is something different, we can pick up the waterfowl survey. It's now changed the accounting data. It's also gone to the defaulting string. Maybe I have 1 PAX on board and I don't want to add anything else, but it is a shared flight. We don't want to use fuel on this. We've got Leroy Brown flying here and Bill Smith as the PNF. Now, the defaults don't work quite as well the second time around, and so here's what I have to do. We'll go and 0, 0, and this time we only did 1 landing and 1 takeoff, so there we are. Nothing else that well, let's get rid of the simulated instrument approaches, make that 0, and make that a blank. Save the page, line item saved. Okay, we'll go to aircraft details. There we are, block 1. We've got to change that too, so we've got 1 cycle on each, on this 2-engine airplane. We save this page. We have no more defects, so we don't have to do anything here. And that puts us done. Okay, so the last step after we've saved everything is to submit the AUR. And that's probably the easiest part. You click the button up here, indicate that you want a fleet AUR, and you will notice that you get this pop-up screen here. In this case, it shows that I've already created an AUR for aircraft 708 that had another flight, and this is the flight right here that we just built. So all I have to do is highlight it, click Submit, and then it's going to want to know where we save it. So in this case, I'm going to go to my removable disk. That's where I've created my AUR files folder, and you will notice that the file name is already established. In this case, it is a Fish and Wildlife Service flight that is done on aircraft 708, and there's other information here about what kind of flight it is, and you'll see the date is embedded in here. It's important for the folks in OAS that are going to be processing these files that we stick to the standard file convention, the naming convention, so that they know what's in the file without having to open it up. And once we're done with that, we are done preparing an AUR. Yes, I really want to close. And you see we're out of the system.